Now, unfortunately, the next story that I have to talk about is not any better than the previous two. And God, I'm really sorry for that. I wish that I had more good news to talk to you about this week. But you know what? This next story, I have to go back to something that I was talking about last week in Kamloops, where I was talking about the ongoing shit show of these masking, anti-masking disputes that we see all over the news now, and they're not getting any better. As a matter of fact, they're getting worse. So in Edmonton earlier this week, or rather I should say maybe it was at the end of last week, there was an incident at a place called the Crown Pub and Grill in North Edmonton. Now, I'm not really familiar with this place. I don't want to really say too much negative about it. But the incident that unfolded there was absolutely blood-chilling. So a woman came in at a point after last call. She refused to wear a mask when asked to wear one around the premises. And then she was refused service because it was after last call. And when the staff asked her to leave, she got her hands on, she either got her hands on a glass and broke it, or perhaps there was already maybe something there already, but she wound up jamming this glass into the face of this server and wound up leaving her with a very nasty cut between her eyes. Actually, she's probably lucky that she didn't get blinded. And apparently this is what all of this is, not like this whole pandemic thing. Apparently this is what it's coming to. We're not getting any better at this. We're getting worse. You know, this wasn't even the only ugly incident last week. There was another one in Dawson Creek, BC, where an elderly man who works as a Wal Mart greeter was viciously assaulted by a guy who was asked to wear a mask and didn't want to wear a mask. And apparently he was so offended that he was asked to wear a mask that he had to assault this Wal Mart greeter. You know, masking, anti-masking, you can be on either side of it that you want. You can say whatever it is that you want about it. But if your position on whether or not you should have to wear a mask to try to stem the spread of this coronavirus, which, by the way, is not going away anytime soon. I mean, we keep setting new records over and over and over again in Alberta. I believe it was more than 1,800 new confirmed cases just today. So it's not fake. It's not a conspiracy. It's a real thing. And we all need to work together to get this thing under control. And however we may actually do that, I'll tell you this much, that assaulting retirees or just working in a Walmart to try to make enough money to get themselves by, or jamming glasses in the hands of pub waitresses, that is not what's going to get us through this pandemic. I mean, mask, no mask, you can think what you want about it. You can feel whatever you want about it. But as it pertains to this COVID-19, the facts do not care about your feelings. Now, I can't force anybody to cooperate any more than they want to, but you know, just the one thing that I can do is to compel you to just implore you to just smarten up. Just smarten up about it. Get over yourselves. Now, if things somewhat go according to plan and you manage to get through this pandemic without having to contract this thing, you know, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, one thing that you will be left with is you will be left with your own conscience. And you are going to have to look at yourself at the end of the day and say to yourself, when this pandemic is over, you're going to have to ask yourself, well, you know, how did I get through this pandemic? What did I do while all of this was going on? And unfortunately, there is somebody out there this week who is going to have to look back on it and say, hey, you know what I did? I assaulted an old man in a Walmart. You know, that's what I did. There's a woman in Edmonton who's going to have to look back and say, oh, I stuck broken glass in a bartender's face. That's what she's going to have to look back and say. And I think that in all honesty, if either one of those two people are human beings befitting of the term, I think that what their conscience is going to tell them is going to be infinitely harder on them than any kind of punishment that the criminal justice system can dole out to them. If you've done something like that and you have to look back on it and you have to say to yourself, you know, wearing a mask, was that worth it? I have a hard time believing that the answer would be yes for anybody. And you know, I do feel at this time, in the interest of fairness, maybe I should note that it isn't really just the anti-mask people that are doing stuff like that. The pro-mask people are doing this kind of stuff too. All right, I've seen video out of the States of a guy locked into a chokehold and dumped on his face in the middle of a bar while they were dragging him out because he was refusing to wear a mask. I mean, that's a little bit over and beyond what's necessary. I saw another one today of a guy Somehow, I don't know where he got the tub full of water, but he walked up behind a guy that was refusing to wear a mask, and he dumped this huge tub of water on the guy right in the middle of a grocery store because he was refusing to wear a mask. Neither of those two things do I think are justified. And so, yeah, obviously, it isn't just the anti-mask people that are going overboard and doing crazy things. So I'm going to say this one more time, and regardless of which side of this you fall on, yes, this applies to all of us. Is that at the end of this pandemic, what you will be left with is your conscience. You will have to look back on this and you will have to say to yourself, you're going to have to look at all of the things that you did, and you're going to have to decide whether you liked them or whether you didn't like them. And maybe it's a little bit past time for a lot of people out there to start looking at that and thinking about that before they do this crazy shit, like assault a Wal Mart greeter or jam a glass in a waitress's face.